fast passes. You know, it's all those little things. And I don't want to go way down this Disney rabbit hole, but that's been happening for years, where they're trying to get every little bit of pennies out of their customer base, and the majority of people are there, or like that's your middle income, you know, families that are trying to just take their kids to go see the freaking mouse. It's already expensive as hell, and then they're trying to milk even more money out of people. So like, there's been a decline in that whole magical experience, I guess. You know, that they did away with the Magical Express from the airport. So if you do fly in, it used to be you bought your airfare, you got to Disney World. Well, let me back up. When you purchased a ticket, you got magic bands, right? Those aren't free anymore. You flew in. Disney provided transportation, because the whole thing with you
to the resort, if you stayed on property,
right? If you stayed on property from the airport to the resort, that's no longer a thing. You got to pay for that too now. Then when you know you get there, the fast pass deal is not free, and then you got to pay. The fast pass system they have now, it's only for the B tier rides. The A tier rides is going to cost you additional money per person to ride those in the fast pass lane, or the lightning lane they call it now. So it's just every little penny that they can try to get out of the customers, and it's caused a lot of people to not want to go to Disney and start seeking elsewhere. And then now they get into this political crap. Like it's almost like
it's not enough.
Well, are they trying to run customers off? Like, are the numbers in their parks so high that they can't manage it? That they're trying to run people off? You know, I don't.
Well, so I mean, I think recently COVID, because again, I mean, Disney lost probably somewhere in the close of $300 to $400 million of true losses over COVID.
I can believe it.
As Disney as the park. So Disney as a corporation is.
Oh yeah, with Marvel and all that, right?
I mean, they are Amazon. You know, they are a conglomerate of different companies that they own. I mean, they own ESPN, they own ABC, they own, there's a multitude of streams of income. But Disney as the park lost hundreds of millions of dollars over COVID. So number one, they're trying to make some of that back again because they have to pull their stock prices up. Shareholders need to have returns.
They also opened. Because they were in Florida, they were able to open their park sooner than most parks. And now they were running at limited capacities.
Yeah.
And we went.
Y'all did?
Yeah.
So Rebecca went too. She said it was awesome.
It was.
She's like
I would do away with meal plans, and I would wear a mask for those 20% park capacities. Like it was. One of our better, because
no lines rolling through things.
Look, we went. I think that was our first time we went where it wasn't the summertime, so we were comfortable. And the whole I'd say the whole, but one of the reasons why is because we knew we had to wear a mask, so we didn't want to be in the Florida heat outside all day with our kids with a freaking mask on our face. So we chose to go during the cooler, air quotes cooler, time of the year in Florida, which was like around November time is when we went. It was one of our favorite times over there. Like, it sucked that we didn't have a meal plan because I'm a foodie, obviously, from my size.
They didn't serve food at all?
They did, but the meal plans are gone.
Gotcha. So you couldn't pay extra thing just for eat, your breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Correct. Like, so we do the meal plans whenever they have it available, because it enables us to eat some of the food that we normally wouldn't be able to afford to eat, right? So when the meal plans are not there, we might do one or two table services, but the rest of it's kind of like your equivalent of eating at McDonald's or Pizza Hut or those type of meals when we're there. Versus with the meal plan, we do at least one sit down meal a day. Is the meal plan that we did, and you had snacks and they call them fast services, which is kind of like your fast food. Mm-hmm. They still don't have those back. The meal plans are still not back.
I'm sure that's for financial reasons.
I don't know, man. Like it's the prices are so much higher at Disney for food anyway.
What I'm saying is not necessarily financial reasons. So if everybody's on a meal plan
Those meal plans aren't free, by the way.
No, I understand
They're
that.
several
What I'm saying is that
thousands
to
of dollars.
prepare for those, you don't know who to prepare for, right? So it's kind of like
You have to have a reservation at the restaurant to eat.
I get that. But what I'm saying is that you don't know where it's going. Like, so you have to prepare more. You have to buy more inventory, right? It's kind of like a cruise ship, or like all-inclusive places. Like, they don't know who's going to go where.
But not all the restaurants are open right now, and I can still go eat there. At those, they still don't know who's going to show up.
Correct.
I'm sure it's less.
Exactly.
I'm sure it's less because most people are probably like me.
When options are open for you can go anywhere, everybody has to be prepared for everything.
Right.
Rather than when we close things down, you can control your
But
costs.
some of those, and I get where you're going, and you're right. But most of those restaurants, they know months in advance who's going to be eating there because they're reservation only. Like you have.
So you're making reservations.
Months before you go. Yeah, like if you want to eat at a certain restaurant, I'm talking you have to do months in advance to eat at some of these restaurants for reservations because they don't take walk-ins, and their books fill up because people have dining plans. They're going to be eating. These restaurants know months and months in advance if you're going to eat there or not.
Even on the meal plan.
Even on a meal plan, yes. Yep. Even without it, like I
Yeah,
said,
I know,
so,
without
so
it, you
we
definitely
went
have to do
last year for Thanksgiving, and we did our Thanksgiving meal at one of the sit-down restaurants, and we had like it was probably 3 months before we went. We had those reservations for our sit-down tables. The quick service meals are not like that. You walk up to a little
Get a burger,
kiosk, you
roll
get
out.
a burger, and yeah, right.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Now, what COVID did do was you had to pre-order a lot of your food on your phone, like through the app. Then you'd walk up when your meal was ready, so it limited the amount of time you were in the place, and it limited the amount of foot traffic going in. Now, it kind of forced us to learn how to pre-order, so like when we went back and they didn't have that service, we still utilized it because we didn't have to wait in frickin' line. We could pre-order our food, and it would give you a little chime. And so we did. There was some positives, I guess, that came out of that because it forced us to have to use the pre-order service, which we actually ended up liking. But to go back to my original point, the lines were not long, like the parks were not crowded. It was lovely going during the COVID time, minus
We
minus the
try. I
masks.
know we're gonna go. This is a lot. We'll move on to another topic. But we traveled a few times during COVID, and it was amazing. Like some of the best trips we had. No people. Yeah, you had to wear masks, and it was restaurants. We went to DC. DC was very interesting. DC was the only place that
DC's one of those places I want. I've never been.
DC's.
I want to go.
You don't go right now. Wait, because it's a very polarizing place. It's very like controversial, like especially right now.
But the history side of it was
Amazing.
good,
The
right?
museums, the monuments, the history, especially you. I mean, I know you're a big history guy. Like, I get chill. Like, it's the same thing when we went to New York with 9/11.
That's another place I want to go. Right.
It's emotional. It truly is.
Right.
If you're a history person and you feel history it's emotional. Like, it's pretty cool.
Like we have a little list. Like my wife and I, when we retire, traveling's our hobby.
Don't let you retire.
I mean, and we're not. Like the whole thing with Disney and the greed aspect of it. Now the political crap they're pulling. We're looking at other locations to start vacationing. So we won't be waiting until we retire to see some of these places that we want to see.
Go.
Because it's forcing us to, like, Disney's kind of making that decision for us.
See the
But
world.
if you have anything, like when we're discussing this stuff, you come across information that's useful to us, or do you feel might be a relative point,
Or fact.
right?
Something that says, hey, this
Spit it
says
out,
this.
bro.
Y'all
Like,
full of
interrupt
shit.
this because we'll ramble on. Part of it is we need somebody to rein us in too, because sometimes we go down these rabbit holes, as our fans know, and we may need. Jared's normally good about pulling us back on point, but when it's just he and I, he's part of the problem, not
And not the solution.
right.
It happens. Like I was talking earlier about how much Disney parks lost. An article in August of 2020 said their parks, experiences, and products department lost $3.5 billion in revenue
Billion.
That's a lot
during
bro.
their third fiscal quarter.
Billion.
That's just a
It's
quarter.
just a quarter,
Billion.
right? That's a lot, dude. They make a freaking buttload.
Oh, we talk about this all the time in my line of work. when people look at things and it's like y'all. I say y'all. When I'm saying y'all, I'm just the
generalized
masses.
y'all. I get it.
It's so hard to comprehend the numbers that these places make. You know,
Oh, yeah,
like
bro.
the astronomical figures would, and everybody's like, that's a lot of money. It's like, I did a thing with my staff the other day, like I think we were talking about some things and just growth and like lending and stuff, and I made a number line, and I said if zero is here, well, you know, we use this table as a visual. If zero is here, and 1 trillion is here, where does 100 million rank? Where would you think? Like just visually looking at it, like as a number line. Zero's here, 1 trillion is here.
Where's 100 million?
100 million. Where do you think 100 million sits in there?
I would say somewhere along over there, like where that black mark's at on the table.
Give me a black mark.
Right. Oh shit.
I don't know. I'm just trying to. I don't want to.
Like somewhere in that.
So somewhere's right here. So you're saying about a quarter of the way.
I'm just using it as a visual.
Yeah, it's within the first inch of this table. So you're here. 100 million.
Right.
And you look at these companies that are trillion-dollar companies that are doing, like Amazon, Apple.
Right.
You know, Disney's not quite there yet, but their market cap is over $1 trillion. And you're looking at, and like you can't fathom 100 million.
Right. That's right.
And it's this, literally this much of what it like.
And their revenue's high, but they spend $1 million a night per park and fireworks. Like it's you know,
yeah. Well, look, that's
like it costs a lot to run those parks. I get all that.
yes.
I just think there's better ways of them masking those costs, right? Like instead of saying it's going to cost you this much to park, you know, raise the night rates $5 for everybody. You know, like I think there's easier ways of hiding that.
So that gets into a whole nother economical.
I mean, again, I don't want to go down these big rabbit holes, but to me,
this is where I wanted to go. So I'm glad you transitioned.
To me, as a consumer, right? If you want to charge for parking, go up a little bit in the ticket price of the room, right? Don't make me feel like I'm paying to have to park. You know what I'm saying? Like your whole company's about illusion, right? Fool me a little bit.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
So I'm gonna fool you because this is where I'm going. This is where I wanted to transition.
If you want to charge more for fast passes or whatever, you know, then put that price somewhere else where it's not.
But then everybody's paying for it, and not everybody's using it.
I mean,
So you really want to throw numbers out, and you really want to get crazy with things, then that's an easy way of doing it. Is just marking everything up. That's what happened over the last handful of years with. Especially since COVID, and this is we talked about on the phone with like the whole Ukraine, Russian inflation, and it frustrates me that everybody puts all this, you know, like you said, the gas prices, you know, our gas prices have nothing to do with Russia and Ukraine. That is a political point. That is a talking point. There is zero economic evidence that Russia invading Ukraine affects our gas prices.
Oh no, our gas price, you know.
I mean, I think ours. I'm talking about the country.
I know that's a whole nother beast,
right?
But you know, I think the thing that makes me the maddest with the gas prices is when they try to blame the gas companies.
They don't set the price.
They don't, and so what you're telling me is these greedy, because that's where they're going right now.
Mm-hmm.
Is these greedy oil companies. So when gas prices are low, the company just feels like giving back.
Yeah.
Like these evil, greedy gas companies. 2 years ago, they weren't evil and greedy. They were just like, you know what? We feel like just giving money back to the people.
We want oil to be at $42 a barrel,
right?
When it costs us $68 a barrel to get it.
Like that's not. No. That's the whole political.
That's what's frustrating. It's the same thing that you know, people think all these price increases, it's because of inflation. And yes, inflation happens, right? I don't discount inflation. But what people fail to realize is that, especially over the last 8 to 10 years, since we haven't really had any major inflation in the last 8 to 10 years. It's been slowly, steadily, and then over the last 18 months, it's been like evident, right? Because people are talking about it.
Well, but I mean, it's gone up a lot under this current administration. Our inflation rates have gone.
Inflation rates have not. Prices have increased.
Our inflation has gone up.
So what are you saying? Inflation?
Listen, the way that we measure inflation, it's typically, and they use the prices of certain things like gas, housing.
Yeah.
I don't remember all.
Take housing out of it because housing's bullshit. Because housing is situational.
But every past president, the housing market has been included in calculating the inflation percentage rises. It has been.
Absolutely.
The only time it hasn't been is under this one. It's not calculated under Biden. If you listen to me, if you calculate Biden's inflation and you add the housing market, he's at Jimmy Carter levels of inflation.
So
Jimmy Carter is accepted as our worst president we've ever had in the history of presidents. And Biden's numbers are equal to his if you include the housing market in it. Right now he's at like 7-something%, not including the housing. But every other president prior to Biden, the housing market has been
back
included
that up
in that.
because this you're talking about
You're using talking points and you're not using evidence. And this is the problem that I have when people talk about inflation.
I'm just talking
Right.
about the way that it's been calculated mathematically throughout the history of our
then
country.
explain where because you can pull up 100 different inflation percentages and where's it going, depending on what they include, what they exclude, what history.
I'm talking about the
So-
generalized inclusions that we as a country have used to calculate our treasury, whoever does the inflation numbers, the housing market prior to Biden was included in that percentage number. It has been throughout history.
Correct. And I'm not disputing
listen to me.
that.
The number we have right now for him is 7% inflation or whatever is excluding
I'll take
the
that.
housing
I'm
market.
not,
And it's done purposely because his numbers go, way higher with that. It's to mask the amount of inflation that his policies have brought on our country. I mean,
so explain that. Explain how a policy has affected the price of anything.
so you don't think that him shutting down gas lines and him adding his like I'm gonna use Green New Deal policies for a generalized term. You don't think that those affected the price of gas in our country or affected how much money it costs for us to manufacture domestically our energy? You don't think that so that's a policy that he did that affect our
It doesn't
our
affect
numbers.
inflation though.
But gas prices is included in our inflation calculation. So
okay,
how
I
do you say
understand
that it
that.
doesn't?
I didn't say it doesn't.
You just said it doesn't. You said gas prices don't affect inflation.
No, I'm saying inflation hasn't affected. First off, I said the Ukraine-Russia thing hasn't affected gas prices. That's right. So that's the whole. I don't like them saying that
But-
what's going on in Russia and Ukraine has affected our gas
But
prices.
if we
bullshit.
import X amount of barrels of oil from Russia,
do you know what that number is?
and then I don't.
It's less than 2%.
Even if it's less than 2%, if we import 2% oil from Russia, and we say we're not going to import that oil anymore, and we go get that oil from XYZ country, and they're 4% higher,
They're not.
I'm just saying.
But they're not. You can't say what ifs and then because we can what if everything.
Our gas prices were high prior to Ukraine. I'm not arguing the fact that that's the cause of our. That's just where they're pointing a proverbial finger right now.
Correct. That's where I was going with it.
I think it's Biden's policies that have affected.
I don't disagree with that either.
amount
I think
of money we're spending on
the
gas.
Keystone Pipeline.
Absolutely.
So that's where I'm going with it is that people need to understand that yes, that policy has affected gas pricing.
Yes.
That specific policy. What I'm doing is not. What I'm getting at is that our cause and effect of our price changing has way more to do with what we do than what policy does.
What do you mean what we do as a country?
Yes,
I don't agree
as
with that.
individuals.
I don't agree with that.
It's not an agreeing. I'm not asking for your agreement. What I'm getting at is that we have bitched along. We are okay paying for conveniences, and unfortunately, that increases your pricing
Sometimes.
all the time. Every time you swipe that debit card, You've just increased the price of everything 3%.
You have to get into specifics on that.
It's not free. It's free to you. It's
Right.
not free to business. So what do? They do what Disney does. They have to increase pricing.
Yeah, but that's
Well, wait,
that's
let me finish
not
the thought.
Okay, well, finish your thought. And then
Because prior to COVID, you could always move and manipulate pricing somewhere else. But when 90% of everything else disappeared and everything went to paying on a call, I'm just using this as a small.
and you don't think policy affected that? Like you're blaming that on us, but people didn't shut down on their own. The
No, I
government
agree.
shut
But
us down.
it's just my same bitch when people say we're going to a cashless society, but then they're swiping credit cards. I just saw a dude yesterday sitting at a red light
Let
with
me-
a big "cancer sucks" sticker on his truck, and he's smoking a cigarette.
Well, he can still think cancer sucks and smoke.
You're a fucking hypocrite.
How? I could think cancer sucks and still smoke.
You're
a cigarette.
advocating for something that's horrible, but then directly putting yourself in harm's way.
I can still think cancer sucks.
I don't disagree
even
with
if,
that.
Even if I take cancer and eat it,
But
I can still think this sucks.
I
mean-
get that, but you don't think that that's hypocritical?
No,
You don't think that that's saying, like,
no, not at all.
okay.
Not at all. I mean, I get the point you're trying to make, and I'm not saying you're wrong in that, but that particular analogy, I think that somebody can still think that cancer sucks and still be addicted to nicotine and smoke cigarettes. Like, I don't think those are mutually
So
exclusive.
you sit here
to each other.
and advocate and we don't hold ourselves accountable for shit in this country. Everything is always somebody else's fault,
Look, we've had this conversation.
right?
I agree with you.
And it happens the
Right.
same thing in politics. If we're gonna, I'm not saying that in the long run that closing the pipeline or not allowing drilling or not doesn't affect our pricing. It absolutely does.
We were energy independent,
right
2 years ago.
I don't disagree with that. That's 100% fact.
Right.
Right. So I'm not saying it doesn't affect that situation.
But our government policy directly affects inflation, 100%. And you're using COVID as an example.
No, I'm not.
But COVID was a government thing. Like, the government shut down.
COVID exposed a lot of things that were already in the works,
Like what?
like price increasing.
But how much did it cost to swipe a credit card prior to COVID?
Nothing. It costs the same thing it does now.
Okay, so how are you blaming?
Because now
how
we
are
got to
you
make our
blaming
money
those-
back.
But those prices were the
Right.
same prior to, right? And I get what you're saying.
Yes.
You have to move.
And when
those
you
costs
eliminate
around.
where I can move money to and from,
but that's
rather than saying if
But that's a policy that caused that. So I get it sucks for small business, and I 100% I'm
It
sympathetic.
doesn't.
I
It doesn't.
agree.
It's not that it
But-
sucks for small business.
But that's a policy.
it sucks
that-
for consumers because you're paying the price, not the small business.
I listen, but to an extent, if I don't want to pay that price, it's going to affect that small
So it
business.
goes back to the Disney argument. If I don't want to pay to park, I can Uber.
Yeah, you can. Yeah,
So it's the same thing.
absolutely.
So that's what I'm getting at.
But then also, but it
Hold-
causes me as a consumer to not want to spend my money there,
Then that's a
right? And that was the point I was getting
yeah.
at,
Then
right?
it's the same thing. Then don't go. And you said, well, what are they trying to get people not to go? Obviously,
Yeah.
and not enough people care because they're still going in droves.
I think that it gets to a point. Everybody has their individual breaking point, right?
Sure.
Everybody has that point where they say, you know what, this is the thing that's doing it for me. I'm not going to Disney anymore, and they keep pushing and pulling the goalposts back. Eventually, they're going to hit more and more people's breaking point, and it's going to cost them their bottom line. To where those price increases and those things that are trying to make up for COVID, or whatever you want to cause it, or say cause it, eventually it's going to get to a point where now, by killing a disease, we're killing the host too, kind of thing.
That's I have
right?
no doubt. It's
And to me, I'm at that point, right? Like I'm at that point where now it's causing me and my family to start looking elsewhere for a vacation, right? It may not be at that point for somebody else yet, but the next thing they do may be. And that's the only point I'm making.
And
with
I'm
that.
going there with the same thing with the money situation and the cost of things. People have to understand that we've adapted, that we like these conveniences, right?
Oh, no doubt.
We like the Uber Eats. We like the waiter. We like our food
Right.
being delivered. We like to order from the app.
Right, and
Right?
there's a cost
That's not
associated
free.
with that. I know it's not free.
You know, we like swiping the card. We don't like carrying cash. I don't like change in my pocket.
Right, but and I'm not one that uses Uber Eats a lot. I think Brennan uses it more.
I don't use it at all.
More than I do.
My wife does.
I used to, and it's a lot.
But the consumer pays that cost.
No,
He makes that choice.
No, sir.
So it costs him the same amount of money.
It costs you the same amount. He pays double, and so does the restaurant. Because to get set up on Uber Eats on Waiter, right? You're gonna that's why a lot of people stopped it and realized, well, in COVID they couldn't, right? So the restaurant has to pay a percentage of the bill to the delivery company, to Uber Eats or whoever it is, and then Brennan also pays the delivery fee, right? So if you order a burger and a fry, and it's $9.99 in a restaurant, that's like Walk-Ons, for example. Walk-Ons has their own delivery zone, right? They have their own agreements that nobody else on the food, like a Grubhub delivers sometimes.
Right.
What you pay on the menu in the restaurant is what you pay on the order on app to deliver. You go to Waiter, look at Waiter's menu prices compared to the actual menu prices of the restaurant.
They increase it, right.
Because the company has to pay that difference.
Right, but he's choosing to order that food at that higher price. So yes, he is paying the price for his convenience, but I don't understand. I don't understand how that affects inflation.
How what?
Him getting Uber Eats or anybody buying
It's
Uber
not
Eats
you
and
paying
paying more for that
conveniences.
convenience.
Because for a lot of times the restaurants didn't have the option of increasing their prices, right? Well, that's new, increasing the prices. Everyone else, it came out of the small businesses. The restaurant had to pay that fee to the delivery company.
Okay.
So in turn, they had to raise all their prices.
But they also didn't have to have that delivery company.
But
They could have delivered it themselves.
They can't. They ain't no manpower.
Or they could say you got to come pick it up. Right? Like they don't have the restaurant as a business chooses to have that option for their customers.
It was that easy. It's that easy of a thought. It's not that easy in an operational standpoint. It's always easy for somebody to say, "Well, just hire somebody."
I'm not saying
just
hire.
develop that. Just do that.
Listen, even if they don't want to hire a delivery driver,
the job is to cook food. That's what a restaurant's job is.
That restaurant could say we don't offer delivery service through anybody. If you want the food,
and when
pick it up.
80% of your competitors are doing it, you don't have a choice.
Okay, but then that's a choice that they make.
I agree, but
They have to adapt to what the consumer wants.
And the consumer pays the difference. And then in turn, because now that's what people want, everybody else has to pay the price. Because my prices go up overall,
or not eat there.
But it's happened across the board, Cody.
Or not
It's
eat
not
there.
a restaurant. It's everywhere. It's the same thing that happens in the grocery stores.
Or don't go out to eat.
It's not. I'm using that as a simple example. It's across every single industry.
But the increase at the grocery store is not Uber Eats' fault.
No,
the increase in the grocery store.
You're taking micros and a macro.
Is a supply demand problem that is COVID related.
And policy related.
But those inflation costs is at fault for the majority of our inflation
and so
problems.
Are we, is my point.
But I don't see that. I don't understand.
It's not a C. It's factual.
But help me see that. Help me see those facts.
It's every time that costs over the last, because again, every business, right? Because I keep going back to the Disney thing. You said, well, just put it in the cost of everything. Hide that from me.
Right.
That's what's happened over the last 3 to 5 years, and people haven't seen it until it's actually hit a plateau, and they go, "God damn, that went up a lot."
Okay.
It did go up a lot.
Yeah, but again, that goes back to you keep increasing the prices. It gets to a point where you start losing business anyway.
Nobody's losing business,
right? Then obviously we're fine paying that. I don't understand the whole. I'm lost in this whole argument.
Then why are you complaining about inflation if you're okay paying for it?
I'm not okay
because half of what inflation has come from our doing.
Listen, I don't. That's the point that I don't agree with. That there's the cost of something going up because of the demand for that service.
It's not a demand for the service.
That's not inflation. Inflation is gas prices. Inflation is
a word that people throw around when they don't know why things have gone up.
Pull up.
You understand what I'm saying?
And what they use to calculate. Those are not things
increasing in pricing.
It's not, but it's not
right.
No, it's not. And the things that they use to calculate inflation
I know what they use
is
to
not the
calculate
cost
inflation.
of a freaking hamburger.
No, you're right.
Right? It's not.
It's the overall cost of goods, services, of housing, of marketing,
Right.
of transportation. There's a cornucopia of things that they use.
But those are things that are directly affected by governmental policy.
Yes, some of them are.
That has nothing to do with me as a consumer.
So you think
My
consumers
buying habits
zero?
have nothing to do with
No,
the
that's
price of gas going up. It doesn't. How did I affect gas prices as a consumer?
what I just said. No,
Because I
number
want
one,
Uber Eats.
No. Uber Eats is, again, you're taking one example and you're trying to blend them to everything
I'm not.
else.
I'm trying to get you to explain to me how me as a consumer is affecting.
So if every small business has to increase every pricing 3 to 5% just to cover credit card costs, just to cover transactional fees.
But those transactional fees were there before COVID. They were there under every administration since credit card companies have come out.
No, not true. That's not true.
Or whenever they came out.
I used to be able to
It's been
either
years.
charge them, or I can move them somewhere else. I had 30% of people that used cards. Now, 95% of people use cards, right? And you got 60% of people that bitch that we're going to a cashless society. I cannot believe we're going to a cashless society. That's the freaking devil show. The government's making us go to a cashless society. No, asshole, you are making us go to a cashless society because you don't pay with cash.
But
There's no self-awareness. There's no self-accountability. Is my whole bitch.
I think that those people who are complaining about going to a cashless society is that if the government takes away the option of having cash, right, then you don't have that choice.
So we have a large expense when it comes to producing cash. So what's the point of producing cash when 90% of people don't use it?
Because people want the option to be able to have it. It is what it is. I'm not saying it makes sense. I'm just telling you that people want the option. And they want to be able to have choices. That's what that is. People want to be able to have cash on hand. And I think, like, look, I use a debit card for most of my transactions. I do. I'm one of those people. But I have cash on hand too, in case I need it. In case the machine goes out, right? In case the government decides tomorrow that they're turning off debit cards, right? I still have a way of having commerce. I have cash. Right, but that's my backup because I don't want to carry cash around on me. I carry a limited amount on me just in case I lose my wallet or whatever.
Sure, no,
right?
I get it. You can't. That's the whole point of not having cash.
Right.
Is that it's easily lost. It's not trackable. You can't, figure out where it was and where it went and who stole it or where.
Right.
No doubt.
So I'm not understanding the direct correlation between me using a debit card and that causing inflation to go up. I can understand.
I didn't say okay.
I can understand
Let me back up. Let me clarify a point. Our price increases
on goods and services.
Correct.
Okay.
Are not just affected by inflation.
I agree with that.
Half of what, but again, that's what inflation is judged on, is the price of things, the increase in pricing.
Across the board, though,
increase in pricing. On everything. Right? I mean, you can look. We're using gas and food and Uber Eats and restaurants as a small microcosm of what actually transpires. Right? It's as big as container ships. Right? Like, it costs so much more money for transactional things to happen because of how we actually make those transitions happen.
I can understand that.
So that makes everything go up. I'm not arguing that policy hasn't increased pricing.
But it
hasn't slowed supplies.
That 3% that it costs to swipe my card doesn't account for like a 30% increase in goods and services, right?
No, it doesn't.
And that's the point I'm trying to make. Like, it's not. I'm not saying it doesn't contribute some, and the whole totality of business having to try to make up that cost, because where they were able to hide the credit card cost maybe in the price of a Coca-Cola.
But this is the word too
right?
that you keep using, is make up. We're not trying to, small businesses, and it's just business in general, aren't trying to make up the cost. They're just trying to carry the cost.
Right, and I get that.
Right?
And
not trying to make up for lost time and be like, oh,
When I say make up, carry, however you want to word it, what I mean is where a company may have been able to when I say make up, carry the cost of the increase in the swipe of a card, because now where 30% of their business may have been cash prior to, now 90% of it is. So that affects the bottom line. And where they may have been able to I gotta use the word make up because it's gonna mess my brain up. Make up that cost with increasing the price for a cup of Coke by 10 cents. That now, because everything else is going up, they can't put that cost there. I get all that. What the point I'm trying to make is me using my debit card is not causing the massive increase in inflation.
You are 100% right.
That's the only
But
point
you
I'm trying
using
to
your
make.
debit card over the last 8 or 10 years has incrementally increased, right? Everybody, not just you. But when you again, we talked about the $100 million of the $1 trillion mark, right? When you take a country as a whole and say that we went from 30% of our population using debit cards to 90+% using debit cards on every transaction they do, that is huge numbers.
Right.
Huge.
Right, but that's
right.
You're talking
I'm using
about
a 1% of our problem.
Okay, but let me ask you this: if those companies came out and said, listen, because of the increase in usage of debit cards, it's making us have to increase our prices by 3% to circumvent that additional cost it's costing us on processing fees. That still doesn't account
I agree.
for the
But
massive
this is what
increase.
you don't. This is what you don't. This is where it's at.
Like if it was just the cost of credit cards,
It's not.
then 3% and they're breaking even.
But it's not, because now the 3% increase. Now I'm paying 3% on top of that increase.
Now, I don't understand.
So I was at $10.
Okay.
Now I'm at $10.30.
Okay.
To charge you,
Yes.
right? So now I got to pay 3% on $10.30. So therefore, I have gone up in cost again,
How?
because now I'm paying 3% on not just $10, but now I'm paying $10.30.
You
Okay.
have to pay. You have to pay,
As a business owner,
As a business owner, if I swipe my credit card, that 3%, that 30 cents, you're saying that you have to pay
on a transaction
on the transaction.
of in a totality of everything.
Okay.
So in a
So
month,
if you if my price of my T-shirt went from $10 to $10.30.
Mm-hmm. So now I'm paying 3% on $10.30.
Okay, all right, I'll follow you.
And then
now.
we keep
Okay.
doing that on top. The same thing with gas prices, right?
But-
So
but
let me
it's
just.
still, it's still gonna affect. If you raised your prices 3%,
But I've done
it's
that.
still negating. No matter if you did that pre-COVID, before, whatever. Those increases are still. It's still the same to me, right? Like it's still. You increase 30%, and if that breaks, if at the end of the day, with the first example of $10, you were bringing home $100 at the end of the week, and then you increase your stuff to $10.30, and after all that's said and done, wherever your price point has to be, at the end of the week, you're still bringing home that $100. I don't understand the whole.
Because you're still bringing home the $100, but now it's cost me.
I'm not talking about me. I'm talking about you as the business owner.
But this is you can't.
Like we'd have to sit down and see and look at the
You got to look at it.
bro.
It's,
Like,
if everything starts costing me 3% more, and I pass that 3% to you,
Right.
and then that 3% increases by 3%, and that increases by 3 over the cost of 8 years, we've increased something in the numbers of 8.5%, right? 9% because of the small 3% on the 3% on the 3% on the 3% on the 3%. Okay, so that's what small business has done over the last handful of years. And when COVID hit,
But even if you hide that,
everything went.
even if you hide that in the cost of a Coke, it still costs you the same bottom line.
Cost who the same bottom line?
The business owner.
What do you mean?
Whether you move that 3% to the cost of your Coke and I buy that Coke with a card, it's still the same 3%. You just increase it over here instead of over here. You just moved it from one hand to another. Like you're saying that you had to recoup that cost, but you were able to move it to different things. But if you move it to a Coke versus a cheeseburger, you're still paying the same amount of money.
But no, because
Or you're
initially
still paying
small
the same amount of
businesses ate those costs. Like the restaurants ate the Uber Eats. Right? when it got to the point, because again, it's a cost of doing business, right? But it got to the point when everybody takes advantage of that convenience. It can't be a cost of doing business because it affects too much of the business.
Right, so it causes the cost of the goods and services to go up.
Correct.
I get that.
And that has just incrementally increased. And then you compound that, especially in some states, like what we do, we can't pass that cost on. Right? I can't charge more.
Right.
That it is what it is. Right? So then when you compound in gas, right, that's happened incrementally in cost of gas.
Right, but that's...
And then gas is also, every state has a minimum gas price that they can sell gas
and those are the costs that I'm talking about when inflation, the cost of gas, and I understand that causes, because now I have to have stuff shipped, so now that stuff's more expensive. But those price increases are not from my credit card.
No.
Those price increases are from the government and the policies that are causing those increases in gas. That's what I'm getting at. I completely understand the whole using the credit card. And look, some businesses that I do business with locally, because I'm a huge proponent for supporting local business, only accept cash because of the whole increase. And look, those places explain. I understand it's an inconvenience, but to keep costs minimal to you as a customer, we choose not to use the debit card. I'm fine with that. I just use cash at those places.
That is such a small percentage.
But because I have the option of using cash at those places, I'm able to choose that. So I understand. Like I'm fine with if a business says, look, we only accept cash and this is the reason for it. I'm fine with that. And I know not all businesses can do that. I completely understand that.
A vast majority can't because your competitors don't do that. So you're going to go down the street and you're going to buy whatever you want to buy from the person that accepts your card because you don't have the cash on you. Which, again, that's what society has created. My whole argument is that as a society, we need to realize that these conveniences that we want so badly
that's one facet
are going to cost us more money.
And I think as a society, we're okay with that. And that facet.
It's the same thing that people that bitch about privacy. Right?
Chad, you're talking about a society that's willing to pay. Could you imagine if gas costs were the same as how much it costs for a gallon of Starbucks coffee?
Yeah, I see
right.
That
so
much.
I mean,
but again, you're paying for convenience.
Right.
But
I don't think that when as a consumer,
we are the most hypocritical society. Is my point? Just what you just said.
When as a consumer, we're talking about goods and services going up. We can understand as a consumer. I can understand that certain prices go up for convenience. I get it. I don't bitch about it. I understand that. It's the costs that aren't affected by that. The costs of gas. The cost of our government shutting down small businesses, right? The cost of the housing market going up. Those things that are affected by governmental policy.
So what do you think?
That's the problem that we have as consumers, and as far as I'm concerned, myself, that's the problem I have when I bitch about inflation. It's not the cost of convenience. It's not the cost of things that I choose to pay for. It's the cost of things that are going up because our government is making bonehead decisions. The food shortages that we're looking at going to people we couldn't see as a country that buying 60 or 30 or 40% of our fertilizer from a country that hates us wouldn't be a problem down the road.
It's not just fertilizer, though.
I mean, but those things are going to cause those decisions that our government has made. They are going to that's what's going to affect the bottom line in a grocery store for me. I don't mind paying the extra delivery fee or the curbside pickup.
Well, right? Delivery fee.
It's those other costs. That's the things, and I don't think people bitch about paying extra for things they choose to pay extra for. It's the paying extra for crap that's out of our control. You're paying extra for
things now that you didn't choose because of so many built-in increases. Just like the Disney example. I don't want to pay for parking. I don't want you to tell me you're charging me for parking. Put it in the price of this.
Right.
That has happened across so many.
That's a half truth, half joke, right? Like,
no, I get it.
Understand the context of what
but it's true across the board in everything else that we talk about, right? When it comes to it's not a half truth when it comes to how pricing is actually done. When you look at price analytics, that's why government regulates on your cell phone bill. They can't hide prices. So when you look at your cell phone bill, it's this long because every single tax for every little service has to be subsidized, has to be itemized. Now,
how much control? And I know it would never happen, so I'm just using this as a thought exercise, right? But if every small business or every business in America told these debit card companies, we're not paying that.
Brendan, there's a couple inflation calculators that you can pull up. Like this one right here has the month to date since 1914 that I'm looking at.
Breakdown of what's
every single month.
So historically, all inflation numbers are compiled from the Consumer Price Index.
Right, which takes into account, but like I'm telling you right now, Biden's one, the housing market is excluded from his number.
This is independent. This is literally the U.S. inflation calendar. Like it's a completely.
And what do they have for right now?
791 for February.
That's not accurate. I'm telling you, it's not. Do the math. You're a math guy. Do the math and tell me if the housing, because his numbers are closer to 11% if you include housing.
I don't understand what you mean by that.
Like, again, and that's why it's hard whenever you get on these tangents.
Dude,
because it's talking points. Like there's.
I'm telling you, I'm not using
this is an end. This is not.
Telling you.
This is not a. When you say Biden's numbers, this isn't Biden's numbers or anybody else's numbers.
It is his numbers.
No, that's not what I'm saying. Like this isn't numbers that he's talking about. He doesn't control the internet in this country.
I mean, arguably.
No, it's not arguably. He does not control the internet in this country. We are not fucking China.
What I'm telling you is the numbers that are used and generally accepted. And I'm not talking about a random website. I'm just talking about the numbers when Fox and CNN both go in and talk about inflation numbers and the accepted inflation rate that we have right now.
Okay. But let me just back up. So we are all under the agreement, right, for us in this conversation, that the numbers that we discussed in the Jimmy Carter era were the highest that there is, right?
As far as I know. Yeah.
But that's right. I mean, I'm looking at it, right? So this spreadsheet calculates all the same data points.
Yeah, Biden's not. He's close to Jimmy Carter. Yeah, he's not.
We're not Biden. We're not. What I'm getting at is we're just looking at the CPI. So CPI across every month of every year from 1914 till now.
Right. Same
data points all included. So we're not going off of whoever is saying what this is. So you can say, well, it's not. It's all included. That every single data point is included from 1914 till today. It's all calculated the same way.
All right. So what's our numbers at right now?
We'll use those numbers. 7.91 as of February 2022.
And
7.
Is there a way to click on that?
91. Click on what?
Like, does it just say CPI, or does it say CPI including XYZ? That's what I'm asking.
So to show that the pie chart that Brendan had up earlier,
yeah,
that showed CPI, that's what it's including.
What I'm asking.
I don't know where you got that point, but that's
what I'm asking. 'Cause I read this in like three different things. So what I'm asking is does that CPI chart that they're using right now
indicate
have
housing?
The housing? Okay, that's what I'm asking.
It uses the actual. No, not that one. No, not that one. It was that pie chart you had.
Yeah, I know where it was.
That's what I said. I'm gonna have to start like screenshotting these things I'm reading online so I can send them to. I didn't know we were talking about inflation either. I'd be a little better prepared. But like I'm telling you, it was on there, and it was our actual. Like it was. I don't know if it was a .gov or what it was.
You just gotta like. I'm not.
It was on there. And look, irregardless, what I'm getting at is
food and beverage. So the Consumer Price Index. Food and beverage is roughly 15%. Housing is 42%. Apparel pricing is 3%. Transportation is 15%. Medical care is 8.5%. Recreation 6%. Education and communication 7%. And all other goods and services a little over 3%. That's the breakdown of
where they get CPI from. So as all those prices increase, that's the price of inflation.
Right.
Those numbers, it's a conglomerate average.
And I'm assuming transportation is fuel,
All.
which you mean
All transportation.
So like the cost of a cab and the cost of a
No, not the cost of a cab, but all transportation,
Like flights.
all railways, flight
Railway.
increases, anything that
Right.
planes, trains, and
Because
automobiles.
the ones that I had seen, like I said, I don't remember if it was a .gov or what, but I typically when I read articles like that, I look at the source material, right, on where these numbers came from, and they were all legitimate deals, but it wasn't just those. Like it was 4 major categories that were used, and I think CPI was just one of them, but it was. Or I don't remember exactly how it was worded, but the major ones were like fuel, it was housing, it was goods and services and food, and there was another one that was used. And those were generally accepted. Like when they talk about the 7%, that's what it was calculating. It was those 4 major categories. And I'm sure most of these things are the same, where they may combine to those pieces of the pie and those type of issues. But the whole point I'm getting at is I don't mind the increase in price on things that are me choosing to pay for them. Are we back?
We're good. We're rolling.
Or the things that like an Uber Eats, where I'm the one that's choosing that. It's the ones that are increased by poor governmental decisions that I think people bitch about. When they start talking about inflation.
I'll throw, I guess, a for instance out there. And this is why I say that I don't disagree that inflation is definitely real.
Yeah, 100%.
I mean, that's undeniable.
And controllable to an extent.
That's exactly where I was, to an extent.
Right.
Because there's no policy that I'm aware of that has been implemented by any president that has controlled the price of lumber.
But there's not directly, right? But you can indirectly control those things.
Not to the percentage that it's happening.
But if tomorrow Biden said, listen, because of our new Green Deal, and look, I don't want to just pick on Biden. Let's say 15 years from now in the future, President Brennan, right? He said that, look, because of the O2 levels in our environment, we're gonna now say that lumber companies can only cut down X amount of trees a year.
Well, that's true. It's called a carbon tax.
That would directly increase.
That's
that would directly affect the cost of lumber, and that would be a policy decision that would increase the cost of lumber.
For the record, I'm going to make everybody ride horses.
And then the following year, President Jared comes in and says, "Listen, we're going to take away that policy that President Brennan put in because our cost of lumber has skyrocketed. That policy would directly decrease the amount of cost of lumber. It would, and I think that if our politicians
in the last 18 months
to make
lumber to go up 400%.
It has.
400%.
That was COVID related, bro. That's what caused the increase in lumber prices. That was
Explain
all.
that.
So what it was
building of houses didn't slow down.
It didn't, but the transportation of lumber, the availability for companies to go out and cut the lumber, the processing of lumber, all those things were affected by the COVID. That's when our prices of lumber went up.
Well, then you can say the same thing for all food goods, because it was the same thing.
And I'm not arguing that at all. Like, I 100% agree with you that the policies that we put in place for COVID affected the price of everything. It did. I mean, we shut down the vast majority of our country.
No doubt.
And of course, that's going to increase the scarcity of a lot of goods, worldwide, not just here. So, I'm 100% agreeing that freaking, the bonehead decisions that we made as a species dealing with COVID affected the price of a lot of things.
Just trying to
You
look at
can
some of
look
these
at locally. Hurricane Ida with the increase in demand increase a lot of the prices of a lot of things around here.
So I'm gonna use that as an example.
It did for a short period of time, because that's a supply and demand issue. That's not an inflation issue.
Right.
Right. That's a simple supply and demand. Wasn't here.
But
go get it.
The price of lumber is what I'm using as a comparison. That is a supply and demand issue.
Well, but it
was affected by COVID. Look it up. I'm telling you, it was.
I'm not saying I agree with you. I'm not saying that. I'm talking about recently. So the last, I don't say 12 months.
So
10 months.
I don't think
There's been no.
I don't think lumber's bounced back yet. Because you figured we had COVID, then we had some major hurricanes, not just Ida. We had some major issues with a lot of demand for lumber, and I don't think lumber's caught up yet. I think once the supplies of lumber catch up to the demand, I think we'll see a decrease.
It's definitely not a supply and demand issue.
Now, I do think that as companies get a taste of that increase in money, that lumber probably won't go back down to what it was previously.
Well, that never does.
Because they can get away with charging a little bit more, right? But I think it'll come down.
Well, everything's going to come down.
Well, I think eventually
It's going to come down.
And look,
as rates go up, everything's going to go down.
I'm not saying that like you're always going to have some inflation, right? Regardless of who's in command of things, you're gonna have some inflation. It's gonna happen. It's a undeniable fact. That's why a lot of retirement systems that have cost of living increases in it are of a higher, I guess, higher sought after by employees, right?
We've had years of zero inflation and negative inflation.
I'm talking about as a whole. Like as a whole, cost of living on average increases like 3% per year or whatever, or 2% per year.
Because we're a capitalistic society,
right? So the cost of living
grow.
So and that's what I'm talking about when I'm saying like just you that inflation and cost of living, those things are things that are going to go up, irregardless of policy. It's those big jumps, and it's those big obvious jumps like things with fuel costs that have people up in arms. It's not we woke up one morning and went, holy crap, we're paying a whole lot of money for certain things. We see that car going towards that cliff, and we're too stupid to hit the brakes, right? And I think that's what's got people frustrated to that point of inflation cost,
Because you can't inconvenience me.
I don't think it's necessarily just that.
Well, that's what you're saying. Like I'm driving to the cliff, I'm driving to the edge of the cliff, and I won't hit the brakes. It's because it's an inconvenience to hit the brakes. I'm used to going at this speed. I'm used to going at where I want to go, and I don't want to hit the brakes. I don't want to take the alternate path. I don't because at some point, like you said with the thing, people bitching about the price of gas, but then they sit in line to pay $7 for a coffee as they burn $5 a gallon of gas. So again, I'm willing to bitch about this, but I'm not willing to change anything to adapt for it.
But those things are not. That's not affected by the usage of gas. Is not affected by you or I. Like you or I don't affect the price of gas.
You stop using it, you will.
To an extent. I think if we all stop buying gas today, the price of gas eventually will come down because we'll have a higher supply of it.
It's not going to go down tomorrow.
Right.
Yeah, it's not going to go down 30 days.
But again, that'll go back to a supply and demand issue.
Correct.
Right? The overall price of gas as the levels of usage stay level, right? Like so our usage of gas staying across the board at a flat line. That in itself, the price of gas is going up, and it's not because of a consumer issue; it's because of a governmental policy issue.
I agree.
And that's the point I'm trying to make. Now, yes, if everybody tomorrow stop using gas, obviously the price is going to go down eventually because we're going to have an overabundance of gas. So at that point, it becomes a supply and demand. It's not a governmental policy, right? But we can tomorrow decrease the price of gas just by open like the Keystone Pipeline or taking some of the regulations off that have currently been.
So let me
put
ask you a
on.
question. So let's, because this is, we talked about it briefly with people get mad at the oil companies that you greedy son of a bitches. You're charging all this money for the price of gas. So what dictates the price of oil?
Well, I mean, I think it's a multifaceted.
It is, but it's there's one simple answer.
Are you referring to what's that freaking organization?
It's not OPEC.
What are you?
So I mean, OPEC does internationally,
Right.
right? I mean, as far as what they allow, the Saudis and to open and flow.
But I mean, you're talking about the price of production that causes the price of transportation, of getting the crude to the refineries. You're talking about the taxation rates on all those things affect the price of gasoline.
But one individual aspect of our economy, or not just our economy, but our system, affects the flow, affects the price.
What's
right?
that?
And that's future traders. Because every price is dictated on what was bought yesterday or day before or last week. So
Yeah, stock market. Yeah, you're talking
so
about
not just the stock market, but people buying. So every bit of oil that is produced is already bought before it's sold.
Right.
Like months ago.
Yeah, futures.
Right? So
right, okay.
So when futures are bought, if they just stop buying futures and saying, you know what, we're just gonna use what's in there, you'll make OPEC open up. You'll make the Keystone Pipeline, because the Keystone Pipeline opens tomorrow. Guess what they're gonna start buying oil at? If they say, hey, look, we're gonna start construction again on the Keystone Pipeline, because the Keystone Pipeline's still fucking year plus away from being operational.
Yep.
So, but even they start construction on it again, what's going to happen to the futures? They're going to drop.
Yeah, because you have so much more
Because
availability.
oh shit, well,
right.
it's coming.
Right.
So let's pull it down now for when we do have all this supply coming in. We're not over, price of gas going to drop to 90 cents a gallon.
Right. They don't want to lose, right?
Correct. So they taper everything. They try to keep the ebb and flow. So there's no, and that's the thing that frustrates me with like, you can create jobs, you can create these policies, you can put these things. You don't have to. All you do is implement them. Just say it, and just start the work, right? Like, there's so many things that he can easily do. That's going to say, "Yep, let's keep this rolling," and not like hurt his base, and not be like, "Well, you're doing all like." No, we're just keeping this going for the future. Like, this is a future, project.
Yeah. But as far as not hurting his base,
Like, it's not going to increase oil production.
no, not immediately.
That's what I'm saying.
No.
So I'm
But
just.
I think that he's trying to show his base that he wants to go more towards a cleaner alternative to fossil fuels, and that's why he's being so punishing on. It's all about votes. So I think that's why he's trying to be so punishing on big oil, is because they want to make a push towards electric vehicles and those type of issues. But I don't know why, other than that, you want to have such a high cost of oil. Like, I don't think these people are stupid.
Taxes, man.
Right? I mean,
it's a ridiculous percentage. It's like 40-something% of our price of gas is taxes.
If we don't rely on these other countries for oil, and we become like I said, we were energy independent, 2 years ago? Then I mean, technically, the world price of oil wouldn't matter to us. If we're producing our own.
It still does because of how our economy works as far as trading goes.
But if we're completely energy independent and we're not buying oil from any other countries, and we're at a point where we're actually exporting oil,
so it should be
right. Then I mean, we don't have to rely on what the world's paying for oil, other than the exportation of it, because we're consuming our own product, right? So I mean, there's to me, there's so many more benefits just, and I'm not talking about just monetarily, but us having energy independence, to me, gives us a whole lot more freedom of choice than where we are now, right? Like, it doesn't just affect the price of gas. Like, I mean, and that's a major thing, but it also affects our stance on the world stage and the things that we can say no to, and the things that we can put pressure on. All those things are affected by us not being energy independent.
But we're definitely going to have more in the next couple months on policy and inflation, and because it's not going anywhere, at least for till midterms. I mean, that's just not going to happen. It's going to continue to rise. I hope we don't see 10%, because that's going to make. We're not far. I mean, we're almost at 8. I mean, the last time, like Brendan said, the last time we were in this was 82 or something like that. I mean, I got it right here. So I mean, it's scary. To look at 2 years ago, we were.
I think that the light at the end of the tunnel with that is after the Carter administration gave us Reagan, and not even taking account the left, right, all that kind of political crap, but Reagan's policies and his tax breaks and those type of things, the reforms.
3 years for that to come down, though.
But the reforms that he made were good. It was good for the country. So if anything else, hopefully it both sides learn their lessons from from these things. I mean, I'm trying to be an
We're at
optimist
3
here,
months. We're at 3 months being over 7%, right? To take that in that same era, from 1978 to the middle of 1982, was all over 7%. 4 years. And I'm gonna have to find that out, because this is my whole thing when we talk about when people like buy a house right now kind of guy, and all my realtor friends get mad at me.
At least not after the midterms.
Well, it's
not even midterms, man. We got to figure out what's going on with interest rates, because we're at an all-time price. Like, so in 1978, you bought a house for $20,000, right? I don't know this for fact. I'm just going trying to go off of memory.
Yeah.
But you paid 10 or 12% interest rates to buy that house.
So in the long term, pay $50,000 for the house on a 30-year mortgage.
Right.
Double the money.
Well, now you're paying, our average house price is $150,000 at a 4.5% rate. So a 30-year mortgage, you're going to pay $300,000. It's all in relation. It's all the same. But right now, if you buy a house for $250,000 and you're going to be paying 6.5%, you're going to pay $750,000 for that house.
Right.
In 30 years. Like, right now, being a home, like to purchase a house in the next couple of months.
The price of the house and the price
of interest rates. Because rates are good. That's the only way you can pull inflation down is increasing rates. Right? Making money more expensive. So when people go, nope, we're going to stop spending. Right? We're going to have to use our own money. Can't borrow. Right? That's the only that's not the only way. It's the quickest way of curbing inflation is by hiking rates.
Yeah, I'm not educated enough to make
that. I mean, it's not. Yeah, I'm not speaking any kind of crazy term. It's because again, if it stops people from spending. So if you stop spending, you stop buying. Supply and demand becomes the issue. Just we talked about with gas.
Yeah, but then
prices all come back down.
You also hurt local business by doing that too, because people aren't spending money. So if they're not spending money, then. But
everything comes down, right? Our unemployment rate's going to go up. But our unemployment rate can, I mean, that's the ebb and flow of everything. That's why we need everything to be around 3 or 4%.
It wasn't like that a few years ago, and we didn't have that.
It wasn't like that, a few years ago?
I mean, people were making more money, spending more money, taxes were good.
But that's an ebb and flow. It's going to happen.
I mean,
rates
were down. And
that can't happen forever.
Why?
Because it can't. Why? Things are going to, because again, then supply and demand becoming, like, just historically has nothing to do with.
People have more money to spend because they're paying less taxes.
Oh, you're talking about just tax purposes? Then yeah, absolutely.
And then because I'm buying things and that kind of stuff, then the interest rates can go down because there's.
But then you have I'm agreeing with you, so don't take. But then you have less than it comes to more accountability on the government side of how they spending money because the money's tighter. And so, I mean, that's just the I guess, ebb and flow of that taxation, you know, of how that tax money is spent.
I think there's a bad, just because we pay a less percentage of taxes, which gives us more money in our pockets, doesn't mean that the amount of money our government's taking in goes down. That's not how it works. If I have an abundance of money and I'm spending that money, I'm going to be paying taxes in the purchased goods. So that the money that the government's getting in taxes on either end. I mean, we get freaking tax coming and going, right?
Yeah, but the federal government's getting 2% on taxes of purchased goods, but they're getting 16% on income tax, right? So there is a huge difference on how you spend it, of how they tax it. That's why income tax was a temporary bill.
Right. I don't know. I'm not in favor of taxes.
Yeah, I know, but I'm just saying, like, so to come and go and say that it's there's no doubt that's, again, my bitch about increasing minimum wage, because it's a way of them increasing taxes, you know.
But I mean, it's such like let's put that on another podcast, because we can go down this rabbit hole, and that's one of the things that I could talk about for probably an hour, but we'll both be sleeping on the couch if we do that. So.
Yeah, I mean, our inflation has, I mean, I'm just trying to glance over this, you know. We have been, on average, not even 3%, I guess, on average, over the last 20 years, you know.
Right.
With some years at 3%, 2%, 1%, 2%. Had some 0.1%, 2015. 2015 was a great year. 2009 was a great year. But the last time we've had, like Brendan said, these kind of numbers, 1981 was actually average year was over 10%. It's not sustainable. Like we can't get back there. And I don't know what's got to happen.
Yeah,
like I said, to curb this.
I don't know either, man.
Because but Jesus. And I know people bitch. I hear it every day from employees, and you know, like the thing is that just because gas goes up and just because everything else goes up, like everybody just assumes that, well, I need a raise. I need a cost of living raise.
Right.
And it's like, so do I.
Yeah, I don't know where you expect that raise to come in. Yeah.
Like where do you get it from?
Well, they want you to pay. They want you to take a cut.
And it's like, okay, so when shit goes back down, I get my money back?
Right. Yeah. Oh no, it don't work like that.
You know, like it's I don't know. Especially, and a lot of things people don't get when it comes to this is like there's plenty of businesses that have to eat these costs.
Oh yeah,
you can't push it to somewhere. You can't move it. You can't. You know, it's like, yeah. I mean, if I'm selling a Coke, I can increase the cost of my Coke by 3% or 5% and just pass that cost on. You know, but you can't do that in plenty of other businesses, especially when you're service industry driven
or regulated.
Financially, when you're government regulated and saying no, your costs are set.
Right. No, I get that.
Like, son of a bitch. Like, you just got to eat it and you got to figure it out. And I mean, the easiest way to do that is to start laying people off. You know,
well, I'm hoping that with our midterm elections that hopefully some of these politicians' eyes are opened. Like I'm hoping that as a society we start hitting those proverbial brakes that we talked about, and some of these people at the political helm feel that pressure. And they start going, hold on, if I like my little cush Washington job, I may want to start making some better decisions. You know, that's all we can hope for. You know, I think that's the only way that we get those breaks hit is as voters we express our concerns in the voter box. You know,
it's not just in the voter box, though. It's also in your everyday habits.
Right. Like
you have more control than you think.
We do.
You know,
we do.
And it's, I know it's little, but if everybody, you know, there's a power in numbers.
That's right. I agree.
You know, It's 300 million freaking people that live here.
Yep.
You know, if you do the things that you bitch about, I promise you have more control than you think you do. You know, but it has to happen in numbers. It can't just be
one person not going to Disney ain't going to change their policy.
No,
right?
No, you know, one person bitching about the price of gas or bitching about you know the price of something like, you know. And look, I have farmer friends as well that have mass farms, and they're the same way. Like grocery stores, are like, no, your shit can rot. Like
Look,
they're not taking these price increases. They're not saying these like.
We started on big farm, man, because they're regulated by some government policies that do not make sense.
It doesn't.
Like the whole dumping policies and stuff. That's
Yep.
We'll get into that.
Yep.
We'll get into that. I think that's a good stopping point, man.
Yeah, I agree. We could talk forever. But.
Yeah.
Well, Brendan, I want to thank you for you know, come and join us. I think it's it'll be fun over the next hopefully few months as we get more comfortable and you get, you know, interject some facts and points. You know, hopefully Tori joins us on our next one and we start getting some guests and kind of filling out this podcast.
We just got to get back up and running, man. You know, it's been a little hiatus, but
it's been too long, man.
Yeah.
But we've been. And everybody's been crazy busy. And this is, again, we always say we don't make no money doing this shit. Hopefully one day it may happen.
Right.
But we're gonna keep doing it anyway. You know, I mean that's slow. 2.5 hours. Hopefully we'll break this into 2 episodes.
Yeah.
So, Brennan, any departing words?
I just appreciate you having me and look forward to doing more.
Cool, man. Cody?
No, good to be back. I enjoy our discussions and you know, it's a labor of love kind of thing. But
That's exactly what it is.
I appreciate our viewers' patience with our hiatus, and
Hope we get y'all back.
hopefully we can get you back and get some more
Without me
a more
spending money on ads and shit. You know?
right, a more stable recording schedule. But again, you know, please hit the comment section for those who are still around with us, and help spread the word, and hopefully we can get this thing up and running again.
Cody loves the comments.
I do. I will engage you in the comment section. I'll leave it at that. I will. Love you guys as always, and thanks. Good to be back.
Yeah, remember, the divide is not so wide.